Welcome to Scoli Sleep Stories. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let the day soften around you and settle in for a calm documentary made for curious minds. If these stories help you rest, learn, or simply enjoy a quieter part of the day, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. Now, when you are ready, let us begin. Chapter 1: The First Dreamers. Let yourself grow still for a little while. There is nothing that needs doing now. Nothing must be decided, remembered, or held. The day, whatever it contained, is behind you. The room around you is quiet. Somewhere beneath the surface of your thoughts, a familiar softness is beginning to gather, the way evening gathers slowly at the edge of a field. Tonight, we are going to think gently, and without hurry, about something shared by human beings across every known age. Wherever people have closed their eyes at the end of a day, they have entered the strange and ordinary country of dreams. Dreaming is probably a universal feature of healthy human life, yet beliefs about dreams have never been universal. People have understood them as messages, warnings, journeys, memories, bodily disturbances, hidden wishes, or experiences created by the sleeping brain. Often, several explanations have existed side by side. Consider what happens as sleep arrives. The body settles, the senses turn inward, the busy world of daylight recedes. Then, without our willing it, another world may begin to unfold behind closed eyes. Faces appear that we have not seen in years, places rise that we have never visited, or that exist nowhere at all. We may speak with people who are far away, or with people who have died. We return to rooms from childhood, we wander through unfamiliar cities, we fly, fall, search, wait, and wake. When morning comes, much of this dissolves. A few bright fragments may remain. Sometimes there is only a feeling that cannot quite be named. Where do dreams seem to take us? What remains when morning comes? These are the questions we will follow through the long history of human thought. For as long as people have wondered about dreams, they have offered different answers, each shaped by the surrounding world. Before there were written answers, however, there were only dreamers. Dreaming is far older than writing. It is older than cities, farming, and every story we can now read. Long before anyone pressed marks into clay or brushed signs onto papyrus, people lay down in darkness and rose again with images lingering in memory. The people who lived tens of thousands of years ago were as cognitively capable as people today. They remembered, imagined, loved, feared, grieved, and hoped. They could experience vivid dreams and nightmares. Yet here we must be careful, because their beliefs about those experiences cannot be directly recovered. Prehistory means the time before a society left readable written records. It is not one brief age, one place, or one culture. It covers immense spans of time and many unrelated populations. To speak of a single prehistoric belief about dreams would be like trying to find one belief shared by everyone living now. A dream also leaves no physical trace by itself. It occurs within a sleeping mind and may vanish moments after waking, unless someone records it, represents it, or tells it to another person who preserves the account. It disappears like mist in early light. What survives from prehistory is material. Archaeologists find tools, shelters, hearths, ritual spaces, graves, ornaments, and images of animals and people. These remains can reveal much about daily life and social relationships. They can show where a fire burned, how a tool was shaped, and how the dead were treated. They rarely tell us what someone thought about a dream. A cautious conclusion drawn from physical remains is called an archaeological inference. Such inference is essential, but it has limits. We may see that someone carved the shape of an animal. We cannot see whether the animal first appeared to the carver in sleep. It has sometimes been suggested that cave paintings record dreams or visions. The thought is evocative, especially when animals painted on stone seem to move in flickering torchlight. Yet there is no firm evidence that cave paintings were created from dreams. The possibility may be held as a question, but not as a fact. Burials require similar care. A grave containing valued objects may tell us something about ritual, affection, identity, or beliefs concerning death. It does not by itself prove a particular theory of dreams, souls, or the afterlife. How then might we approach the earliest dreamers without pretending to know what cannot be known? One method is ethnographic analogy. This means using documented practices in one culture to suggest possibilities elsewhere. In historically recorded societies, dreams have sometimes been understood as journeys, encounters with ancestors, or communications with animals and non-human beings. Such comparisons remind us of the wide range of human possibilities. They do not prove what prehistoric people believed, nor should any living or recently documented people be treated as unchanged survivors of prehistory. Every culture has its own history. Every tradition changes through time. Responsible comparison opens possibilities without turning resemblance into certainty. What we can imagine more securely is the physical setting in which early sleep occurred. Picture a shared shelter at the end of a long day. A fire has settled into low embers, glowing beneath a pale layer of ash. Outside, wind moves through trees, or rain falls steadily on leaves, hide, or earth. Nearby companions breathe with a slow rhythm. The darkness beyond the shelter holds the sounds of animals and weather. During the day, tracks may have been seen beside water or pressed into soft ground. At night, the remembered tracks might return as living movement. An animal seen only briefly could appear close and vivid in a dream. A distant place might seem suddenly present. A remembered face might enter the quiet privacy of sleep. Perhaps such an experience was regarded as ordinary. Perhaps it was told beside the morning fire. Perhaps it was kept private. Perhaps a particular dream mattered because it seemed connected with a decision, a loss, a hunt, or a relationship we cannot know. Yet dreams may have seemed significant for the same reasons they still do. They are involuntary. We do not simply choose what will appear. They can feel vivid and emotionally powerful. They may bring back what waking attention has set aside, and they are private, visible only to the dreamer until shaped into words. Something that arrives unbidden, feels real, and leaves a strong emotion behind naturally invites reflection. This will be one of the quiet themes of our journey. People will awaken with an experience that belongs to them alone. Then they will seek a listener, a family member, priest, scholar, physician, interpreter, analyst, or scientist. The remembered dream becomes a report, and the report enters the language and expectations of its time. We should also remember that the history preserved for us is uneven. Once writing appears, the clearest voices often belong to rulers, temples, courts, scholars, and literate communities. The dreams of shepherds, craftspeople, children, and laborers are much harder to recover. The record is real, but partial. It is like a quiet room lit by one lamp, bright in one corner and dim in another. For now, let the shelter and its fading fire remain. Let the embers glow softly. Let the rain continue beyond the walls. Those first dreamers left no written explanation of what they thought happened during sleep. We honor them best by not inventing an answer for them. We can simply remember that they were there, closing their eyes as we close ours, entering the same private night. Then, after an almost unimaginable passage of time, something changed. In a warm land beside great rivers, a hand took up a reed stylus. By lamplight, small wedge-shaped marks were pressed into damp clay. Thoughts could now be stored, copied, carried, and preserved beyond the life of the person who first expressed them. Among those thoughts were dreams. The fading fire becomes an oil lamp. The unrecorded image becomes a line of writing. And beside the ancient rivers, our story continues. Chapter 2. Messages beside the ancient rivers. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, cities rose from plains of mud and reed. Temple courtyards filled with footsteps. Boats moved along waterways. Scribes learned to press careful signs into clay. This writing is called cuneiform, from the wedge-shaped marks made by a reed stylus. Cuneiform texts survive from Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian settings. They include accounts, letters, prayers, rituals, literature, royal inscriptions, and learned collections of signs. They also preserve dreams. The evidence is scattered across centuries. Some tablets are broken. Some works survive only in later copies, written long after the traditions they preserve first developed. The best preserved records often come from palaces, temples, or scholarly libraries. They show us much, but not everything. Within these sources, dreams could be treated as messages from gods, warnings of danger, or signs concerning rulers, temples, and military campaigns. Yet it would be misleading to say that every dream was considered prophetic. Importance depended upon the dreamer, the setting, the surrounding circumstances, and the signs recognized within the dream. A royal dream recorded in an inscription had a different public role from an ordinary dream forgotten after breakfast. One memorable example comes from Gudea, ruler of the city of Lagash in the late 3rd millennium BCE. In inscriptions associated with him, Gudea receives a dream connected with the construction of a temple. The dream is elaborate and symbolic. Figures appear whose identities and intentions are not immediately clear. Gudea seeks interpretation before acting. The message may be important, but importance does not make it simple. Even a ruler requires someone who can help make sense of what has appeared. Here we meet the interpreter as a recognized figure. Divination is the attempt to seek knowledge through signs, ritual, or revelation. In Mesopotamia, it could be a learned practice. Specialists studied patterns in many kinds of signs, including dreams. Titles and methods differed across places and periods, but interpretation could demand training, memory, and familiarity with established traditions. Imagine a ruler seated in a quiet chamber while a learned advisor listens. The oil flame trembles. Outside, river air moves through a courtyard. The dream is repeated slowly so that no detail is lost. A gesture, animal, building, sound, or direction might matter. Meaning is not rushed. Dreams also play an important role in the story surrounding Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh survives in several forms, with the standard Babylonian version preserved in tablets later than some of the tales it contains. It is a literary work, not a transparent record of ordinary belief. Still, its dream episodes show how ancient authors imagined the relationship between dreaming and interpretation. Gilgamesh experiences symbolic dreams. His mother Ninsun interprets some of them. Later, his companion Enkidu also acts as an interpreter. The dreamer receives the image, but another person helps reveal its significance. This division between dreamer and interpreter will return throughout history. A dream may feel intimate, yet its accepted meaning may depend upon someone else, a parent, priest, scholar, doctor, or trusted friend. Mesopotamian scholars also compiled dream omens. One collection is now conventionally called Ishkar-Zakiku. Its entries linked dreamed images with possible outcomes. An omen was a sign believed to indicate something that might happen. These collections were not a single fixed dictionary, used in exactly the same way for thousands of years. Traditions changed, tablets were copied, and meanings depended upon learned conventions. The surviving material is uneven. Even so, the collections reveal a sustained effort to organize the uncertainty of dreams. A strange image could be set into a pattern. The private night could be connected to a public system of knowledge. Dreams might also be met with ritual responses. Prayers or incantations could be used when a dream felt troubling or uncertain. An incantation was a formal set of words recited for a desired effect. Such practices placed the dream within a wider relationship between people, gods, danger, and protection. Yet ordinary causes were not necessarily absent. Ancient societies were not made up of people who believed every nighttime image carried a divine command. A forgotten dream might remain forgotten. A confused one might be dismissed. A meaningful dream had to be recognized as such. This is important because history is not a simple path from sacred explanation to natural explanation. People have often held several possibilities at once. A dream might be influenced by the body and still carry religious meaning. It might be personal and also political. It might be remembered as a message and shaped into literature. The recorded dreams of rulers often had special authority. A royal dream could justify a building project, explain a decision, or suggest divine favor. That does not mean the dream was invented, nor does it prove it occurred exactly as later written. Once a dream enters an inscription or epic, it serves the purposes of the text that preserves it. Meanwhile, countless unrecorded sleepers rested in mud brick houses. Their dreams may have concerned work, family, illness, longing, food, and recent events. We hear much less from them. Still, the clay tablets preserve a remarkable threshold. Here, dreams begin to leave visible marks. Picture a scribe completing a tablet. The last wedge is pressed into the surface. The clay rests on a shelf, slowly becoming firm. A dream that might have vanished by noon has entered material history. From clay, our path now moves toward papyrus. From the rivers of Mesopotamia, it follows the quiet water of the Nile, where another learned tradition arranged dreamed images beneath judgments of good and bad. The lamp remains, the writing surface changes. Chapter 3. Dreaming Along the Nile. Night settles gently along the Nile. After the heat of day, plaster walls release their warmth. Water moves beyond the darkened houses, carrying the faint reflection of moonlight. Inside, a roll of papyrus is opened beside a low lamp. Among the surviving texts from ancient Egypt is a manuscript known as the Ramesside Dream Book. It is preserved on Papyrus Chester Beatty III and is generally dated to the 13th century BCE. The manuscript probably came from Deir el-Medina, the community of skilled artisans who worked on royal tombs near Thebes. These were painters, stoneworkers, scribes, and craftspeople whose lives are unusually well documented by ancient standards. Yet even here, the dream book should not be imagined as a handbook used by every Egyptian. It offers a window into a learned tradition. Its entries often follow a repeated form. If a person sees a particular thing in a dream, the sight is judged good or bad, and an interpretation follows. In the surviving manuscript, red ink marks unfavorable judgments. The distinction may sound simple, but the meanings behind it were not. Interpretations could depend on Egyptian wordplay, ritual associations, social expectations, and ideas of order and disorder. A dreamed action that seems pleasant to a modern listener might have carried an unfavorable meaning. Another image that seems puzzling to us might have been reassuring within its original culture. Dream symbols do not float freely across history. They belong to languages and communities. A sound in one word might echo another. An animal might carry ritual associations. A bodily action might suggest purity, fertility, status, or disturbance. To understand an entry fully, one would need to know far more than the pictured object. One would need to understand the world surrounding it. Even then, the manuscript would not tell us how frequently people consulted such texts, or how closely ordinary sleepers followed them. Only a fraction of Egyptian dream literature survives. The remaining pieces reveal possibilities, not universal practice. Dreams in Egyptian sources could be associated with gods, health, protection, daily concerns, and communication beyond ordinary waking life. Egyptian texts also preserve appeals to deceased relatives and accounts of relationships between the living and the dead. Yet not every such communication occurred through dreams, and it would be too simple to place all Egyptian beliefs into one category. Ideas of personhood were complex. The Egyptian Ba, for example, is sometimes translated as soul, but the English word can be misleading. Egyptian personhood involved several interrelated aspects, and no single modern term captures them exactly. Here again, an ancient concept asks us to move slowly. Imagine a sleeper in Deir el-Medina. Linen lies lightly across the bed. Perhaps the day has been spent painting, carving, carrying, or measuring in the royal tombs. Perhaps family voices have only recently faded. During sleep, an image appears. In the morning, the dream may be told to someone trusted. It may be compared with a known interpretation, or it may simply be absorbed into the day and forgotten. The surviving papyrus cannot tell us which response was most common. Later Egyptian periods provide clearer evidence for incubation, the practice of deliberately sleeping in a sacred place in the hope of receiving a meaningful dream. This evidence is especially strong where Egyptian and Greek religious practices interacted. It would be unwise to project those later customs unchanged into the distant age of the pyramids. Practices developed over time. Sanctuaries differed. What occurred in one temple or century did not necessarily occur everywhere. Still, the idea is a gentle and enduring one. Prepare carefully, enter a sacred space, lie down, and wait for guidance to come and sleep. Dreams could be approached with hope, but also with caution. The categories of good and bad in the Ramesside Dream Book reflect concerns with stability and disruption, health and illness, social position and proper order. They show how a culture placed the private dream within a larger moral and ritual landscape. The use of red ink makes that landscape visible. A scribe unrolls the papyrus. Black signs fill the surface. Then, in certain places, red marks alter the rhythm of the page. The color is not there to frighten us. It is part of an orderly system, a way of distinguishing judgments and guiding a reader's attention. As with Mesopotamian omen texts, interpretation gives structure to uncertainty. The sleeper cannot choose the dream. The interpreter cannot return to the experience itself. All that remains is the report, arranged in words. This distance between experience and record will follow us into modern science. Researchers, too, usually rely on what a person remembers after waking. The dream itself remains private. The account becomes evidence. For now, let the papyrus rest beside the lamp. Outside, the Nile continues its quiet course toward the Mediterranean. Across that sea, Greek poets will imagine dreams passing through gates of horn and ivory. In hillside sanctuaries, people seeking relief will wash, offer gifts, and lie down beneath the protection of a healing god. The river opens into the sea, and the sea carries us toward the dreaming temples of Greece. Chapter 4: The Dreaming Temples of Greece. A Greek sanctuary cools after sunset. Olive leaves stir in the evening air. Sandals cross pale stone. Water is poured into a basin, and low voices fade as darkness settles over the hillside. In Greek literature, dreams often appear as messages or figures sent by gods. Homeric poetry sometimes imagines a dream approaching a sleeping person, almost as a visitor might approach a door. One of the most memorable images comes from the Odyssey. Penelope speaks of two gates through which dreams may pass. Dreams emerging through the gate of horn come true, while those passing through the gate of ivory deceive. It is a beautiful poetic image, not a universal Greek doctrine. Greek beliefs were diverse, and people could question the reliability of dreams. Even within literature, a dream might guide, mislead, comfort, or confuse. Some dreams were not merely awaited, they were deliberately sought. Asclepius was the Greek god of healing. Sanctuaries dedicated to him were called Asclepieia. Major sites included Epidaurus, Kos, and Pergamon, although their practices changed through time and differed from place to place. A person seeking help might travel a considerable distance to reach one of these sanctuaries. Illness may already have brought uncertainty, discomfort, and hope. Arrival offered a structured setting in which to prepare, rest, and seek divine assistance. Visitors might undergo purification, make an offering, follow dietary instructions, wash, or take part in other rituals. A votive offering was a gift dedicated in supplication or gratitude. Such acts marked the movement from ordinary space into a place set apart for healing. Then came incubation, ritual sleep intended to invite a meaningful dream. In a designated sleeping area, the visitor lay down and waited. Perhaps Asclepius would appear in a dream. Perhaps the god would touch or heal the body. Perhaps the dream would prescribe a treatment or offer a sign requiring interpretation after waking. Not every visitor necessarily dreamed. Not every visitor was cured. The sanctuary was not a modern hospital, and its inscriptions are not modern clinical records. At Epidaurus, inscriptions preserve accounts of cures attributed to the god. They form part of the sanctuary's official memory. They reveal what the community chose to commemorate and what it claimed about divine healing. These accounts cannot be independently verified as medical case reports, yet they remain valuable evidence for the hopes, practices, and stories surrounding the sanctuary. Temple healing and practical care were not always rivals. Diet, bathing, exercise, ritual, rest, and medical attention could coexist. The sharp modern division between religion and medicine does not always fit the ancient setting. A person might seek bodily relief and sacred meaning at the same time. Imagine the sleeping hall after voices have quieted. The day's warmth lingers in the stone. Beyond the roofline, stars move slowly across the open sky. Nearby sleepers carry their separate concerns, each one waiting within a private darkness. Expectation may shape what is dreamed. So may illness, fasting, discomfort, unfamiliar surroundings, ritual preparation, and remembered stories about earlier cures. We can recognize these possibilities without claiming to reconstruct any individual experience. In the morning, an image may remain. Perhaps the dreamer remembers the god. Perhaps there is an instruction, an animal, a gesture, or only a powerful feeling of reassurance. Someone at the sanctuary may help interpret the experience. The dream is then placed within the language of healing. Snakes were associated with Asclepius and appeared in his sacred imagery. In this setting, they could represent the god and his healing presence. Their movement through sanctuary stories need not be imagined as threatening. They belonged to a religious symbol system that was familiar to worshippers. The wider Greek world also contained physicians working in traditions now associated with the Hippocratic corpus. These medical writings were produced by several authors, not by one person alone. Some considered bodily causes for dreams and used dream imagery as possible evidence of health or imbalance. Sacred and natural explanations could therefore meet in the same sleeping body. A dream might be a divine encounter. It might reveal a physical condition. It might be influenced by food, temperature, pain, or memory. Ancient people did not always insist that only one of these accounts could be true. As dawn reaches the sanctuary, inscriptions become visible in the pale light. The sleepers rise. Some carry a remembered image. Others may carry only the hope that rest itself has helped. The question of meaning remains, but another question begins to emerge. What if dreams do not arrive from outside at all? What if they begin with sensations lingering in the body, with memory, desire, and the movements of the mind? Beyond the sanctuary, in shaded walkways and rooms of conversation, Greek philosophers begin to ask where dreams come from. Chapter 5. Philosophers ask where dreams begin. Measured footsteps pass beneath a line of columns. The heat of the afternoon has softened. Conversation turns from public affairs toward something quieter, the peculiar activity of the mind in sleep. Greek naturalistic explanations did not simply replace religious interpretation. Temples remained active. Poets continued to write of divine dreams. Families and individuals maintained many customs. Philosophical and bodily explanations developed beside them. A naturalistic explanation seeks causes in nature, sensation, the body, or ordinary mental processes rather than in direct supernatural action. Plato approached dreams in several different ways. His dialogues are complex, and they do not offer one simple, unified dream theory. In the Republic, Plato considers desires that may emerge during sleep when the restraints of waking reason are relaxed. Thoughts held in check during the day may become more visible at night. This resembles later discussions of hidden mental life, but Plato should not be described as discovering the modern unconscious. His concepts belong to a different philosophical world. In the Timaeus, Plato connects dream imagery and divination with a speculative account of the body, including the liver. The details are far from modern physiology, yet the important point is that dream experience could be discussed through bodily processes as well as divine communication. Aristotle treated the subject more consistently in naturalistic terms. In works including On Dreams and On Divination and Sleep, he proposed that dreams arise from lingering movements or impressions within the sensory system after external objects are gone. During the day, the senses respond to the world. After the object is removed, a trace of its activity may remain. In sleep, when new sensory information is reduced, these faint movements can become the material of experience. Imagine looking at bright water before sunset. Later, with the eyes closed, movement and light seem to continue. Or imagine hearing a distant cart as sleep begins. A sound enters the dream and becomes thunder, music, or footsteps in another place. Aristotle also observed that slight bodily sensations may seem enlarged during sleep. A small warmth might become the impression of standing near a fire. A mild discomfort might be transformed into a dramatic event. This observation feels familiar, even though Aristotle's physiology was mistaken in many details by modern standards. His work was not neuroscience. It was an ancient attempt to reason from experience. He was skeptical that dreams were generally sent by gods. Apparent predictions, he suggested, might sometimes result from coincidence. In other cases, a dreamer might notice subtle bodily signs before an illness becomes obvious. A dream could also influence later behavior, helping bring about what then appeared to have been predicted. The dream in that case would not merely foresee an action, it might help cause it. Medical writers also considered dreams. Some texts in the Hippocratic corpus treated dream content as possible evidence of bodily balance or illness. The corpus was written by multiple authors, so it is too simple to say that Hippocrates himself held every view found within it. Ancient terms for sensation, imagination, mind, and soul do not map neatly onto modern psychology. When we translate them, we are crossing more than language. We are crossing systems of thought. Still, a recognizable question has taken form. Can a dream be explained by what happened during the day, by what the senses retain, and by what the body feels during sleep? That question appears in many traditions, though its answers differ. Far from the Greek world, South Asian philosophical and religious texts also examine the states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and the Mandukya Upanishad considered these states in relation to consciousness. These writings are not simply dream dictionaries. They belong to diverse traditions of philosophical inquiry. Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, medical, and popular approaches should not be merged into a single Indian theory. We may imagine, only as a gentle glimpse, a teacher and student seated on a shaded veranda, while night insects sound beyond them. Their question is not merely what one dream symbol predicts. It is what dreaming reveals about consciousness and the shifting conditions of experience. Across different regions, then, sleepers and thinkers approach the border between waking and dreaming from many directions. Was a dream sent? Was it produced by the body? Was it a residue of perception? Did it reveal desire, health, or the nature of consciousness? No single answer removed the others. As evening falls along the Greek walkway, the body retains the day's warmth. Conversation fades, but faint impressions remain. Soon, Roman roads and sea routes will carry Greek ideas into a wider Mediterranean world. There, one interpreter will insist that a dream cannot be understood apart from the person who dreamed it. Chapter 6. Rome and the Many Kinds of Dreams. A harbor settles into night. Ropes creak softly against wooden posts. Cartwheels sound in a distant street. Beside a couch, wax tablets and scrolls wait within the light of a lamp. Dream culture in the Roman Mediterranean drew upon Greek, Etruscan, Egyptian, and other traditions. Dreams appear in histories, biographies, poetry, medical texts, political accounts, and everyday practices of interpretation. Reports of rulers' dreams deserve particular care. A dream attributed to an emperor or military leader could help a later writer explain a rise to power, justify a decision, or foreshadow death. Such reports may preserve genuine memories. They may also be shaped by storytelling and politics. Elite literary dreams are not necessarily exact transcripts of sleeping experience. The most substantial surviving ancient work devoted to dream interpretation was written by Artemidorus of Daldis. He lived in the 2nd century CE under Roman rule and wrote in Greek. His 5-book work is called the Narrated, meaning the interpretation of dreams. Artemidorus distinguished relatively direct dreams from allegorical dreams, whose images were believed to stand for something else. Many of his interpretations were predictive, yet he did not believe that symbols could be understood without considering the dreamer. The same image, he argued, might mean different things for different people. Interpretation should take account of age, sex, occupation, social position, health, family circumstances, customary meanings, and the exact sequence of events in the dream. An image of travel would not mean precisely the same thing to a person already preparing for a journey as it would to someone settled at home. An object associated with a trade might carry a special meaning for a craftsperson. A bodily image might be read differently depending on health. Artemidorus includes athletes, tradespeople, householders, travelers, public officials, and enslaved people among his examples. His pages offer glimpses of a socially varied world. They also reveal ancient hierarchies and assumptions about gender, status, freedom, and work. These ideas can be studied as evidence without being endorsed. Artemidorus claimed to have traveled, consulted interpreters, gathered examples, and read earlier books. We might picture him arriving in different cities, listening to reports and comparing them with established traditions. His interpreter is patient. Before offering an answer, the interpreter asks who the dreamer is. This sounds personal in a way that may remind us of later psychology. Yet Artemidorus was not practicing modern psychotherapy. His meanings were often conventional and oriented toward future events. The individual mattered, but as a person placed within an ancient social order. His work also reminds us that a dream report contains many layers. First comes the sleeping experience, then waking memory, then the telling, then the interpreter's questions, then the meaning assigned within a cultural system. At every stage, the dream is selected, organized, and expressed. The private image becomes a social object. Roman authorities could also be wary of divination, especially when predictions concerned an emperor. A dream interpreted as a sign of political change might seem dangerous. Restrictions varied across periods, but the possibility shows how closely dreams could be tied to power. Much later in late antiquity, Macrobius presented an influential 5-part classification of dreamlike experiences in his commentary on Cicero's Dream of Scipio. His categories distinguished meaningful dreams from nightmares, apparitions, and confused imagery associated with ordinary concerns. The scheme would travel through manuscript culture and become influential in medieval Europe. Classification offered a way to decide not merely what a dream meant, but whether it belonged to a meaningful kind at all. This question of trust becomes increasingly important as we move into biblical and early Christian worlds. A dream might guide. It might warn. It might arise from the body or from ordinary worries. It might mislead. Before interpretation could begin, the dreamer or community had to ask whether the experience deserved confidence. The harbor grows quiet. Scrolls are gathered and lamps turned low. Across generations, texts are copied by hand. Roman pages become late antique and medieval manuscripts. The dream remains, but the central task becomes discernment, the careful judgment of where a dream came from and what, if anything, should follow. Chapter 7. Dreams in Biblical and Early Christian Worlds. A household lies quiet beneath the light of a small oil lamp. Beyond the walls, a road stretches into darkness. Within the sleeping room, a dream becomes part of a sacred story. Hebrew biblical texts contain dreams of guidance, covenant, warning, and symbolic prophecy. These texts come from different periods and literary genres, so they should not be reduced to one theory of dreams. In Genesis, Jacob dreams of a stairway or ramp joining earth and heaven, with divine messengers moving upon it. The dream marks a place and a promise within the story. Joseph, also in Genesis, dreams of images suggesting a future change in family relationships. Later, while imprisoned, he interprets the dreams of fellow prisoners. He then interprets Pharaoh's dreams, whose repeated images concern coming abundance and famine. In the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's dreams require interpretation. Their meaning is not obvious to the ruler who experiences them. As in Mesopotamian literature, the important dream still needs an informed reader. These scriptural accounts serve theological and literary purposes. They are not neutral dream diaries. Their importance comes partly from the communities that preserved, read, and interpreted them. Biblical traditions also warn against false prophecy and unreliable divination. The presence of meaningful dreams does not imply that every dream should be trusted. The distinction is essential. A culture can accept the possibility of revelation while remaining cautious about individual claims. In the New Testament, another Joseph receives guidance through dreams concerning Mary, the infant Jesus, the journey to Egypt, and the return home. This Joseph is a different figure from Joseph in Genesis. The Magi are warned in a dream not to return to Herod. Later, Pilate's wife reports a troubling dream concerning Jesus. A dream should not automatically be equated with a vision. Some scriptural experiences occur while awake, or in states that the text does not define clearly. The categories overlap in places, but they are not identical. Jewish traditions surrounding biblical dreams continued in their own varied histories. They should not be collapsed into later Christianity. Early Christians inherited biblical and Jewish approaches alongside Greco-Roman philosophy, medicine, literature, and popular customs. Their attitudes were not uniform. Tertullian devoted substantial attention to dreams and accepted that they might arise from several sources. This allowed for meaningful dreams without requiring every experience to have the same origin. Augustine also described vivid dreams and approached them with interpretive and moral caution. One of his important observations concerned responsibility. An involuntary experience during sleep was not equivalent to a deliberate action performed while awake. A person might dream of doing something they would reject in waking life. The occurrence of the image did not necessarily reveal a chosen intention or create the same moral responsibility. This offered a measure of gentleness toward the dreaming mind. Christian authorities often warned against professional divination and attempts to predict the future mechanically, yet many continued to accept that exceptional dreams could be providential. The challenge was discernment. Discernment means careful judgment concerning the source and meaning of a spiritual experience. A dream might be divine, bodily, ordinary, or misleading. The emotional power of the experience did not settle the matter by itself. Imagine a manuscript being read in a monastic room. Rain touches the window. A lamp illuminates a passage about a dream. The reader knows that sacred texts contain trusted dreams, but also that private experiences require caution. Perhaps the dream is compared with scripture, moral teaching, bodily health, and the dreamer's conduct. Perhaps advice is sought from someone experienced. The response may be to wait rather than act. Across these traditions, authority mattered. A dream preserved in scripture carried a different weight from an unverified personal claim. Communities shaped which dreams were remembered, copied, preached, or set aside. Once again, the remembered dream is only the beginning. Meaning emerges through interpretation and acceptance. Dawn bells sound. Ordinary duties return. A vivid image may linger, but the dreamer re-enters a world of texts, practices, and relationships. From these manuscripts, our path moves toward the libraries, mosques, homes, and courtyards of the Islamic world, where dreams would also be approached through scripture, scholarship, and an ethic of careful speech. The question remains familiar. Which dreams should be told, and to whom? Chapter 8. Night Journeys Across the Islamic World. The heat of the day has passed from a courtyard. Water is poured for washing. A lamp rests beside pages of careful script. Before dawn, the air is still. Dreams hold an important but carefully bounded place in Islamic scripture, hadith, scholarship, and devotional life. There is no single Islamic dream theory, just as there was no single Christian, Greek, or Egyptian one. Sunni, Shiite, Sufi, philosophical, legal, and local traditions have approached dreams in different ways, yet certain texts and ethical principles became widely influential. Surah Yusuf in the Quran recounts the story of Joseph. Dreams and interpretation shape the narrative, but so does the danger of careless disclosure. Joseph is advised not to tell his dream to those who may respond harmfully. The dream may be meaningful, yet the social setting matters. Not every dream should be shared with everyone. In another Quranic passage, Abraham sees in a dream that he must sacrifice his son. Islamic tradition generally identifies the son as Ishmael, although the passage in Surah 37 does not name him there. Islamic tradition gives special importance to the truthful dreams of the Prophet Muhammad, particularly before the beginning of Quranic revelation. At the same time, dreams were not understood as a source of new revelation or law after Muhammad. A private dream could not override the Quran, prophetic teaching, or established legal principles. This boundary protected the distinction between personal experience and communal religious authority. A widely transmitted hadith describes three broad sources or kinds of dreams. One is a good or truthful dream associated with God. Another is a distressing dream associated with Satan. A third is ordinary self-talk, reflecting a person's concerns, thoughts, and daily experience. Translations and terminology vary. Ru'ya is often used for a favorable or meaningful dream or vision. Hulm may refer to ordinary or troubling dreams, though usage is not identical in every source. The categories recognize that dreams can differ in origin and value. A vivid dream is not automatically a divine message. Recommended responses to a distressing dream include seeking refuge in God and not spreading the dream. Details differ among hadith versions and legal traditions. The larger ethic is one of restraint, reassurance, and protection from unnecessary harm. Dream interpretation developed as both a scholarly and popular field. The most famous name associated with it is Muhammad ibn Sirin of Basra, who died in 728 CE. However, major dream manuals attributed to Ibn Sirin were compiled, expanded, or transmitted after his lifetime. Their authorship should not be treated as certain. Famous names often gathered later traditions around them. Interpreters such as Abd al-Ghani al-Nabulsi continued the literature of dream interpretation. Meanings could depend on piety, occupation, personal circumstances, language, Quranic imagery, proverbs, names, and wordplay. As in Egypt and in the work of Artemidorus, symbols were embedded in culture. A skilled interpreter was expected to listen carefully. Adab, meaning proper conduct or ethical cultivation, mattered. Interpretation was not simply a performance of cleverness, it carried responsibility. An interpreter should avoid harmful certainty. A dream might be offered a favorable reading when possible, or left uninterpreted if no responsible meaning could be given. Imagine someone arriving with a dream in the quiet hours before sunrise. The listener does not interrupt. Questions are asked gently. What is the dreamer's situation? What words were heard? What concerns were present during the day? The answer, if one is given, remains within limits. The night journey and ascension associated with Muhammad should not casually be described as an ordinary sleep dream. Muslim sources and scholars have debated the mode of the experience. It occupies a distinct theological place. This distinction reminds us not to force every unusual experience into one category. Islamic dream cultures were no more uniformly mystical than Christian or classical ones. Bodily states, daily thoughts, spiritual meaning, and disturbing imagery could all be recognized. What mattered was how the experience was classified and how responsibly it was handled. The first light begins to enter the courtyard. The lamp grows less necessary. Pages of manuscript remain open, carrying interpretations across generations. From these libraries, our path turns westward into medieval Europe, where scripture, classical philosophy, humoral medicine, folklore, and small dream books all gathered around the sleeping bed. The night remains layered. Chapter 9: Medieval Nights and Renaissance Signs. Rain touches the glass of a monastery window. Rushlights burn softly in a corridor. In another house, herbal scents linger near a bed. A reader adds a small note to the margin of a manuscript. Medieval European beliefs about dreams drew from many sources: scripture, classical philosophy, medicine, monastic teaching, folklore, literature, and popular divination. It would be a mistake to imagine medieval people as universally credulous. Writers debated dreams carefully. Some accepted rare divine messages, others emphasized bodily causes or ordinary mental confusion. Many allowed several explanations to coexist. Macrobius's late antique classification remained influential. His 5-part scheme distinguished meaningful dreams from nightmares, apparitions, and confused imagery associated with everyday concerns. The categories helped readers decide whether a dream deserved interpretation. Classification came before meaning. Short manuals also circulated under names such as the Somniale Danielis, or Dream Book of Daniel. The attribution to the biblical Daniel was traditional rather than historical. Some versions arranged dream images alphabetically. Others linked dreams to days of the lunar month. These texts could be used as fortune-telling aids, devotional tools, sources of curiosity, or playful guides. Their use varied by region, language, class, and century. Church authorities often condemned mechanical dream divination, especially attempts to predict the future through fixed rules. Yet condemnation does not tell us exactly how everyone behaved. A forbidden practice may still have been common, rare, private, or adapted in new forms. Religious writers could also maintain that exceptional dreams were meaningful. The tension was not between belief and disbelief, but between trusted revelation and unreliable interpretation. Medicine offered another framework. Medieval learned medicine often drew upon the theory of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These fluids were believed to shape health and temperament. Food, illness, sleeping position, emotional disturbance, and bodily imbalance might influence dream imagery. Melancholy was historically associated with black bile, though the old term does not correspond exactly to the modern diagnosis of depression. Humoral medicine was a serious intellectual system in its time, even though it is not accepted as modern physiology. A sleeper might therefore consider several explanations after a vivid night. Perhaps supper had been too heavy, perhaps fever disturbed the mind, perhaps the sleeping position affected breathing, perhaps the dream reflected sorrow, perhaps it deserved prayer. These possibilities did not always seem mutually exclusive. Dreaming also became an important literary form. In a dream vision, a narrator falls asleep and enters an allegorical landscape. Allegory allows people, places, and events to represent moral, spiritual, political, or emotional meanings. The Romance of the Rose uses a dream framework. Dante includes significant dream passages. Chaucer also employs dreams and dream visions. These are crafted works of literature, not spontaneous dream reports. The sleeping narrator allows a writer to enter a world where abstract ideas can speak, walk, argue, and guide. As the Renaissance unfolded, change came gradually. Renewed access to Greek texts, expanding print culture, religious debate, and interest in individual experience all shaped dream writing. Artemidorus appeared in printed editions and translations. Ancient interpretive methods entered new households through printed pages. Girolamo Cardano, a physician and mathematician, wrote extensively about his own dreams. He considered them in relation to temperament, providence, signs, and personal events. His approach was neither simply medieval nor fully modern. It drew together medicine, self-observation, inherited symbolism, and belief. Beyond Europe, Chinese traditions also developed rich approaches to dreams. Manuals associated with the Duke of Zhou became influential, although their textual history is complex, and they were not simply written as one book by the ancient duke. Chinese medical traditions sometimes related dreams to organs, energies, and bodily imbalance. In the Zhuangzi, the famous butterfly passage raises a different question. Zhuangzhou dreams that he is a butterfly. On waking, uncertainty remains. Was Zhou dreaming of the butterfly, or was the butterfly dreaming of Zhou? The passage is a philosophical meditation on transformation and perspective, not a scientific dream theory. It gently unsettles confidence in the boundary between waking and dreaming. These are only brief glimpses. Chinese traditions, like South Asian and European traditions, are internally diverse and cannot be reduced to one account. Back in a Renaissance print shop, fresh pages cool as evening arrives. The old lamp remains, but the manuscript has become a printed book. More readers can compare inherited interpretations with their own experience. Soon, the printed page will become a bedside notebook. Instead of beginning with a fixed list of symbols, some observers will record the dream first, then compare it with sounds, sensations, and recent events. The sleeping body is moving toward study, though the modern laboratory has not yet arrived. Chapter 10. The sleeping body enters the laboratory. A notebook and pencil rest beside the bed. A clock ticks steadily in a darkened study. Curtains move in a faint draft. During the 17th and 18th centuries, writers increasingly discussed dreams through nerves, sensation, imagination, association, and bodily processes. Association is the mental link by which one idea or memory calls up another. A room may suggest a person, a sound may recall a journey. In dreams, such links may unfold rapidly and without deliberate control. Religious and prophetic interpretations did not disappear. The growing interest in bodily explanations added new methods rather than creating one sudden break with the past. Personal observation became increasingly important. Some writers recorded dreams and compared them with recent experiences. A dream could be treated as something to note carefully before it faded. 19th century sleep research remained partly philosophical, anecdotal, and introspective. Introspection means observing one's own thoughts and experiences. Modern sleep laboratories did not yet exist. There were no established sleep stages and no EEG recordings of electrical activity at the scalp. Instead, researchers and curious self-observers experimented with mild sensory stimulation. They used sounds, smells, touch, light, or changes in temperature to see whether something in the room might be woven into a dream. Sometimes it seemed to happen. A soft sound might become bells, thunder, music, or a spoken voice. A change in warmth might become sunlight or fire. A touch might be transformed into an event within the dream. This did not occur predictably every time, nor could the observer directly inspect the dream as it happened. The results still depended on memory after waking. Alfred Maury explored such questions in his 1861 book, Le Sommeil et les Rêves. He described observations and experiments involving external stimuli and experiences near the boundary of sleep. Maury is also associated with a famous guillotine dream. According to his retrospective account, he dreamed an extended sequence ending in execution, then woke as part of his bed fell against his neck. The story has often been used to suggest that a long dream can be created in an instant, yet it cannot serve as precise proof. It was a remembered personal report, not an independently verified measurement. The timing and reconstruction of dream narratives are difficult to establish after waking. Memory does not preserve every moment like a recording. It selects, joins, and reshapes. The Marquis de Hervey de Saint-Denis also kept extensive records. In 1867, he published Dreams and the Ways to Direct Them. He explored whether a person could recognize dreaming while still asleep and influence what happened. His work forms an early bridge toward later research on lucid dreaming, though his methods were not those of a modern laboratory. 19th century observers studied recurring dreams, recent events entering sleep, fragments of older memories, the apparent duration of dreams, and moments of awareness within them. They were also interested in the borders of sleep. Hypnagogic experiences occur while falling asleep. A person may notice brief images, sounds, or unusual shifts in thought as waking attention loosens. Hypnopompic experiences occur while waking. Dream imagery may linger briefly as awareness of the room returns. These transitions can feel strange because sleeping and waking do not always meet at one sharp line. The mind may pass gradually from one condition into another. Picture an observer waking before dawn and reaching for the notebook. A few words are written quickly: a street, a voice, a red door, the feeling of rain. Even as the pencil moves, details disappear. The record is useful, but incomplete. This limitation remains in present-day research. Scientists can measure sleep stages and awaken a participant at selected times, but the dream itself is still known through report. The remembered narrative has already passed through attention and language. Even so, the bedside notebook changed the study of dreams. Repeated records allowed comparison. Recent experiences could be traced. Patterns could be noticed. The dream became part of a personal archive. Physiology, the study of how living bodies function, was beginning to offer a new setting for old questions. Yet meaning did not vanish. A person might still wonder whether a recurring image carried emotional, spiritual, or personal significance. Mechanism and meaning continued to coexist. The ticking clock moves toward morning. The notebook closes. Soon, dream records will enter another quiet room, the consulting room. There, the dream will be treated not mainly as a prediction, but as a path toward hidden wishes, conflicts, symbols, and possibilities within the mind. Chapter 11. Freud, Jung, and the Hidden Mind. A quiet consulting room. A notebook resting on one knee. A patient pause after the telling of a dream. At the turn of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud placed dreams near the center of a new account of mental life. His book, The Interpretation of Dreams, was published in late 1899, though the publisher dated it 1900. Freud described dreams as a royal road to knowledge of unconscious mental activity. The word unconscious has several meanings. In psychoanalysis, it refers to mental wishes, conflicts, memories, and processes outside present awareness. Modern cognitive science also studies unconscious processes, but it does not always use the term in Freud's sense. Freud distinguished between manifest content and latent thoughts. The manifest content is the dream as remembered and reported. The house, train, person, animal, conversation, or sequence of events. The latent thoughts are the underlying wishes, conflicts, and associations Freud proposed beneath the remembered dream. According to his theory, dream work transforms latent thoughts into the manifest dream. One process is condensation, in which several ideas or people combine into a single image. A dream figure might seem to be one person while carrying features associated with several others. Another process is displacement. Emotional importance shifts from one image to another. Something minor in the dream may carry feelings connected with a more important concern. Symbolic representation allows an idea to appear through another image. Secondary revision then gives the remembered dream a more coherent story, smoothing some of its strange transitions. Freud argued that dreams involve wish fulfillment. The wish might be disguised, conflicted, difficult to recognize, or accompanied by distress. This was not simply a claim that every dream presents an obvious pleasant desire. He also did not rely entirely on a fixed symbol dictionary. He emphasized the dreamer's own free associations. What does this room bring to mind? Who does this figure resemble? What happened recently? Which thought arose just before the dream? The dreamer's personal connections mattered. Freud's evidence came mainly from self-analysis, case studies, and clinical interpretation, rather than controlled experiments. His theory became enormously influential, but it was not scientifically proved. Carl Jung first worked closely with Freud and later developed a distinct approach called analytical psychology. Jung believed dreams could compensate for an overly one-sided waking attitude. If conscious life became narrow or rigid, the dream might introduce neglected feelings, images, or possibilities. He distinguished personal unconscious material from what he proposed as the collective unconscious. Within this theory, archetypes are recurring fundamental patterns in human imagination. Examples include the shadow, child, wise elder, and journey. An archetype is not a rigid symbol with one universal translation. Jung did not mean that every appearance of an old person, child, or road must mean the same thing. Personal and cultural context remained important. Jung often treated a series of dreams as more informative than one isolated dream. Patterns might develop. An image could change from night to night. He also gave dreams a perspective quality. They might point toward emerging possibilities rather than merely concealing wishes rooted in the past. Freud and Jung differed deeply, but both made the dream a conversation with aspects of mental life that were not immediately available to waking awareness. Their ideas shaped psychotherapy, literature, art, film, and everyday language. People began speaking casually of repression, wish fulfillment, symbols, archetypes, and the unconscious. Their broad claims remain disputed. Many are difficult to test or falsify. A falsifiable claim is one that could, in principle, be tested and shown false. Interpretation can become flexible enough to explain almost any result. When that happens, scientific testing becomes difficult. Modern research supports the idea that dreams draw upon emotion, memory, personal concerns, and recent experience. That does not confirm every mechanism proposed by Freud or Jung. Nor is psychoanalytic interpretation a form of mind reading. No interpreter can establish a hidden motive with certainty merely by assigning meaning to an image. Contemporary therapists may discuss dreams without accepting classical psychoanalysis in full. A dream can be used as a starting point for reflection, not as a secret code with one correct answer. Imagine the dreamer pausing after an account. Morning images are already fading. The analyst listens. Meaning emerges through conversation, but remains an interpretation. The lamp in the consulting room now dims. Another light appears, the soft, controlled glow of a sleep laboratory. Electrodes rest against the scalp. A monitor traces changing waves. Researchers can now observe the rhythms of sleep with a precision earlier dreamers could not imagine. Yet even here, the private dream remains just beyond direct view. Chapter 12. The Dreaming Brain and the Mystery That Remains. Dim lights rest over a quiet laboratory. Fine wires lead from electrodes placed against the scalp. On a monitor, slow lines rise and fall. Electroencephalography, usually called EEG, records electrical activity measured at the scalp. It allowed researchers to observe that sleep is not one uniform state. Patterns change as the night unfolds. In 1953, Eugene Azarinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman published findings connecting periods of rapid eye movement with vivid dream reports. William Dement later helped establish systematic research into REM sleep and modern sleep medicine. Scientists did not discover dreaming in 1953. Human beings had always known dreams. What researchers discovered was a measurable association between a particular sleep state and frequent reports of vivid dreaming. Normal sleep passes through several stages. NREM stage N1 is the light transition into sleep. Thoughts loosen. Brief images may appear. Awareness of the room begins to recede. NREM stage N2 is more stable sleep. EEG recordings show features called sleep spindles and K-complexes. A sleep sprocket is a brief burst of rhythmic brain activity. NREM stage N3 is deep slow-wave sleep, named for the large slow waves visible in the EEG. Then there is REM sleep, marked by rapid eye movements, active brain patterns, and greatly reduced skeletal muscle tone. This reduced muscle tone is called atonia. It limits most large movements during REM sleep, though it does not shut down every muscle. These stages cycle through the night. Deep NREM sleep is generally more prominent earlier. REM periods tend to become longer toward morning. Vivid and story-like dreams are reported frequently when people awaken from REM sleep. But dreaming is not exclusive to REM. Dream reports also occur after awakenings from REM sleep. On average, they may differ in vividness, emotional intensity, or narrative complexity, but the boundary is not absolute. REM sleep and dreaming are related. They are not identical. Rapid eye movements also do not mean that the eyes are simply watching every event in a dream, as though viewing a film. Brain imaging and lesion studies associate dreaming with networks involved in visual imagery, memory, emotion, imagination, and self-related thought. No single dream center has been established, A neural correlate is brain activity reliably associated with an experience. It is not necessarily the experience's only cause. In 1977, J. Allen Hobson and Robert McCarley proposed the activation synthesis model. In its original form, it suggested that internally generated activation during REM sleep reaches the forebrain, which constructs a dream experience from it. The brain, in this view, makes a story from activity arising within sleep. Other approaches emphasize memory consolidation, emotional processing, simulation of social or threatening situations, predictive processing, and the spontaneous construction of experience when external sensory input is reduced. These theories can overlap. There is no consensus that dreaming has one exclusive function. Sleep clearly supports several kinds of memory and learning. Memory consolidation refers to processes that stabilize or reorganize memories. It is harder to prove that the subjective dream narrative itself performs this work. The fact that sleep supports memory does not mean every remembered dream has a useful function. Dreams often incorporate recent experiences, older memories, current worries, goals, and emotionally important people or places. Usually these elements are recombined rather than replayed exactly. A familiar house may stand in an unfamiliar city. A person from childhood may speak with the voice of someone known now. Yesterday's brief concern may enter a landscape drawn from years ago. The sleeping mind builds with fragments. Dreaming may contribute to emotional processing, and this remains an active area of research. The idea is plausible and supported in several ways, but it is not a settled, complete explanation. Dream recall also depends greatly on timing and attention. Waking during or soon after a dream increases the chance of remembering it. Turning toward the memory immediately may preserve a few details. A lack of recall does not prove that no dreaming occurred. Lucid dreaming offers another way to study the sleeping mind. A lucid dream is one in which the sleeper realizes that they are dreaming while the dream continues. Lucidity does not always bring complete control. A person may know that the scene is a dream, yet remain unable to change it. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, researchers including Keith Hearn and Stephen LaBerge verified lucid dreaming in laboratory settings. Trained sleepers agreed to make prearranged left-right eye movements after becoming lucid during REM sleep. Because some eye movements can be recorded despite REM atonia, the signals could be identified from outside. The sleeping dreamer and waking researcher had established a limited bridge. Later studies have used eye signals and physiological measurements for simple forms of communication with lucid dreamers. These methods are remarkable, but they do not turn a dream into a film that others can watch. Brain scans cannot reconstruct a complete dream with precise accuracy. The experience remains largely private. Lucid dreaming is not necessarily spiritual, therapeutic, harmful, or beneficial. Experiences and outcomes vary. It is one form of dreaming, not mastery over the whole dream world. Scientists also study sleep in other animals. Many mammals and birds show states with features resembling human REM and NREM sleep. Animals may move during sleep, and neural patterns may replay aspects of waking activity. Yet animals cannot provide verbal dream reports. We should not claim certainty about their subjective experiences. Perhaps an animal dreams. The possibility may feel persuasive. Science can describe sleep states and behavior, but it cannot ask the sleeping animal what the night was like. And so, after thousands of years of interpretation and decades of measurement, uncertainty remains. Modern science can describe cycles of sleep. It can record electrical activity, eye movement, breathing, and muscle tone. It can awaken a sleeper at selected moments and ask what was happening. It can show that dreams draw upon memory, emotion, perception, and imagination. It can propose mechanisms by which dream experience is constructed. Yet mechanism does not settle meaning. A dream may be generated by the sleeping brain and still matter deeply to the person who remembers it. Understanding how an image arose does not determine what place it should hold in a life. Across history, every age has looked into the same private night and found reflections of its surrounding world. Mesopotamian scribes found signs that could be pressed into clay. Egyptian interpreters arranged dreams upon papyrus beneath judgments of good and bad. Greek worshippers sought healing in sanctuaries, while philosophers asked whether sensation lingered after the world grew quiet. Roman interpreters listened for the dreamer's place within society. Biblical communities preserved dreams of guidance and warning, while religious thinkers developed practices of discernment. Islamic scholars distinguish truthful dreams, distressing dreams, and the self-talk of ordinary concerns. Medieval physicians considered humors, food, illness, emotion, and sleeping position. Poets entered allegorical landscapes. Renaissance observers compared ancient books with private experience. 19th century writers placed pencils beside their beds. Freud and Jung listened for wishes, conflicts, simples, and emerging possibilities. Sleep researchers placed electrodes against the scalp and watched the slow rhythm of the night. Clay tablet became papyrus. Papyrus became parchment. Parchment became printed book. Printed book became bedside notebook. Notebook became case history. Case history became EEG trace. At every stage, someone tried to preserve what waking was already taking away. And now, the long history of dreaming returns to this room. There is no need tonight to decide what dreams truly are in one final sense. There is no need to interpret every image that may come. If a thought loosens and becomes a scene, let it. If a memory becomes a place, let it. If familiar faces drift through unfamiliar rooms, they need not carry a message. If an image feels meaningful, its meaning need not be solved before morning. The body knows how to move through sleep. Light sleep may deepen. Slow waves may pass quietly across the brain. Later, REM periods may lengthen as dawn approaches. Somewhere within those changing states, a dream may gather from recent moments and distant memories, from feeling, sensation, and imagination. Or perhaps nothing will be remembered. That too is part of sleep. The laboratory lights grow dim. The monitor continues tracing its soft, repeating lines. Beyond the windows, the dark sky moves almost imperceptibly toward morning. Across ancient shelters, temple courtyards, monastic rooms, city houses, consulting rooms, and laboratories, sleepers have entered this same quiet interval. They have awakened with stories. They have asked where they went. They have wondered who spoke. They have searched for warning, comfort, health, knowledge, memory, desire, and meaning. No single answer has belonged to everyone. Sacred, medical, philosophical, and scientific explanations have often rested side by side. The mystery did not disappear when measurement began. It became more carefully described, and the private night remained private. So let the words begin to fade now, as dreamed words often fade. Let clay, papyrus, parchment, ink, and the pale line of the EEG drift gently out of view. There is nothing you need to preserve, nothing you need to explain. Thoughts may become images. Images may become colors. Colors may soften into something quieter still. The room remains around you. Your breathing continues in its own unhurried rhythm. The long history of dreams recedes, leaving only the simple approach of sleep. And wherever the dreaming mind may wander, morning can wait.